think this for Zoomer's Leshrac, it's still Lesh. You're still going to be able to play a lot on these towers, but I think we're really going to see that game play out that we saw earlier, where it was Team Team versus D2 Hustlers, where the Tidehunter's going to sit in front of the towers, the Leshrac's going to try to kill them, we're going to reach a stalemate, and then the Faceless Void and the Tiny are going to try to find those initiations, and that's when the game really gets started. Until then, though, it should just be a farm fest pretty much across the board for at least 10 to 15.
Yeah, that'll be the first major, maybe breaking point for either squad. But still waiting to see what the call is going to be for Zoomers in terms of Moo's hero. In terms of the bans, though, we see four Zoomers focusing on the carry role. They take away the Ursa first, while Team Team removing the Sand King, a hero that maybe doesn't always play nice with the IO, but regardless of the IO synergy, that SK could have seriously impacted their team fight ability. Just locking heroes down with the Burrow, the Epi obviously in its own right can do a pretty substantial amount of damage. So Team Team not having it, they ban the Sand King away. Four Zoomers will take out the Troll Warlord in exchange, and Sammy's options in that carry position are a little slim at the moment.
Yeah, it really has been directly banned out. Every single Sammy Boy hero is actually gone. All of them. Every single one that he has more than, I feel like 30 or 40 games in comp is been taken out. And that does make you think, what do you want to play into this Faceless Void matchup? You don't really want to go for some of those more slippery heroes. You can't exactly pick like the anti-mages or the weavers into Faceless Void. At the same time, something like that would feel kind of nice, just because you want a lane where you can play aggressively onto the IO, but that's where it does feel a little bit awkward. I feel like they, if they really wanted to force it, could maybe look at a hero like the Clinks, go back for something that Sammy Boy is very, very comfortable with. The only problem is that, again, that's another hero that is susceptible to the jump. The biggest benefit, of course, is that Clinks randomly has 5,000 HP, so you can definitely get yourself set up in pretty safe positions, as well as matching up very nicely versus Leshrac. Doesn't really do anything versus the Skeletons, being a completely magic-based core. Aside from that, though, I really am struggling to figure out what hero pick they'd want. Meanwhile, for Zoomers, of course, looking for Moose hero, they want something to lane with the IO in the meantime. And I'm surprised they actually go for the Elder Titan ban. If they really wanted to, they could go for a hero like the Undying, which we've seen this lane play out before. And that would really make any hero that Sammy Boy ends up playing feel absolutely terrible. He would have to go for a ranged hero, I think, at that point.
Yeah, we'll see if four Zoomers consider it. And I don't know. We've seen from Moo before with the Undying. As we mentioned earlier, we've seen the Tusk out from them once or twice to pair up with that IO2, but we'll have to wait and see. The Undying really just does feel like a nice choice for them. You are going to be obnoxious against whoever you're laning against, and then Tiny and Tidehunter as strength heroes as well are going to be hit that little bit more by the decays as well later on in the match. So seems like a match made in heaven. I mean, Moo's comfortable with it. It works out well for them, and that is not Undying, so shows what we know. The Vengeful Spirit, though, in for four Zoomers instead. That core Venge, we saw it right sort of at the start of this event, and then it kind of disappeared for a few days, but looks like four Zoomers are going to be bringing it back.
Yeah, and I'll be honest, I did forget about the Vengeful Spirit a little bit there. It's a strange hero to lane with the IO, though. You don't really have that catalyst. It already has very good attack speed, so being overcharged isn't going to change all that much for you. Of course, you are playing the anti-armor game now. You do have that Wave of Terror, and they will just go for the Clings, so I don't know. I think they might have been a little bit hesitant to lane the Undying if they were preempting this Clinks pick, but will this Venge feel fantastic? With 730C, they changed the additional move speed you got upon death, so that way it's not absolutely broken. I think they made it
Thanks,
from
guys. Thanks a
24%
lot.
to 15% MS whenever you are at that Venge illusion. Aside from that, though, it is the same hero. You got a health bar now instead of an illusion health bar, which is definitely a lot easier to distinct when it comes to actually killing the hero, which is a nice quality of life change. But will IO Venge be able to get aggressive on Kling's Bane? That is the question that four Zoomers are really throwing down here. And Personally, I think not. I feel like this is going to be a really rough lane for at least Z Freak. If Moo can pull back, get levels, you are just going to do Venge things. But Bane and Clinks, they're heroes that are meant to win lanes and they're meant to get very efficient in those early trades. Where Io is just going to heal up Avenge and then they're going to try to make those trades with Wave of Terror. I really would be surprised if they got too much out of that bot lane, or at least they're not going to get shut out, but I don't think they're going to dominate the Sammy Boy Clinks either. And I think it's really key that this Clinks doesn't have a good time. So I'm a little bit scared right now for Four Zoomers.
Yeah, and maybe four Zoomers know something we don't, but Venge IO doesn't quite seem like the level of aggression from that duo that we were sort of talking about and that we had seen from them in previous attempts at this sort of laning duo. So, I don't know. If you were looking for Moo to be on someone less aggressive, more farming oriented, it seems like there were other options other than the Vengeful Spirit. But as I said, maybe they know something we don't. Maybe there's a build that Moo is going to be going for, or a timing on the items that are more conventional that's going to sort of work out for them. There is always the chance for maybe a stun and a swap into something like the Static Storm, and that could just absolutely annihilate any of those cores on the opposing side. So, Jesus, that voice line is unsettling. But there's going to be moves for four Zoomers to make. I'm just not sure if those moves come early in the match.
Yeah, and that is where Vengeful Spirit, at least stylistically, is good at displacing the Clinks, literally. And that is one of the most important factors when it comes to actually being able to set up the skeletons and feel like you have this fortress surrounding you, where even if you get a chrono or a nice initiation off, you're going to be able to catch him before he can set up 4 to 6 skeletons where maybe Gunner can actually approach. But we've seen Clinks versus Leshrac play out a few times in this tournament already, and none of those times has it been too beneficial for the Lesh. It's just really difficult to approach. It's almost the exact same reason why Lesh versus TB is not as good or touted as it has been in the past, because as soon as you get items like the Scotty and possibly the Dragonlance, it feels like suddenly you can't approach the enemy team's carry. You have to now buy a Blink Dagger or a Ghost Scepter, something that's going to let you survive versus this physical damage. It's just not something you want. I think that's where the Venge might come into play, where the swap will let you catch them off guard. But I also feel like pairing it with a melee hero would have just been a little bit nicer. That, and Venge doesn't really flash farm either. So when it comes to levels for these two, you're not going to see Moo really be able to sit by himself in the jungle and get away with it. I think that's where Z-Freak might need to find a new partner pretty early on. Otherwise, they are going to fall really far behind level-wise, something neither of these heroes want.
Yeah, maybe the call will just be sit with Moo for a bit, and then maybe back off, go help out the Faceless Void, give him a little bit of a boost in the jungle, something along those lines. I don't know, but we'll have to wait and see. We'll judge it when it actually comes, but for now, Moo hasn't even really skilled anything up just yet, but that's a lot of damage he's already taking. Z-Freak is going to be here to heal him up, but I don't know. This duo really can't afford to get all that aggressive right now, as you see Z-Freak just getting pushed back over and over again. So Mike is going to be able to hold his ground. There's going to be the stun, but again, yeah, that's... I'm not really seeing it just yet. I mean, we're all of 1 minute in, so maybe a little bit too early, but you get that stun down, maybe you hit him up with a Wave of Terror after, but then you're relying on right clicks from Avenge and an IO, and I know Sammy's not tanky, but he's not quite that squishy, where those right clicks in and of themselves would bring him down.
Yeah, it's just these trades do get more efficient, giving them a little bit more credit once you get at least level 2 to 3. I think level 3 is really going to be their time to shine, but the problem is that Mike is completely okay trading with 2 heroes. That's why they love this Bane for this bottom lane. They pick it every single time they can, and they get level 2 a little bit faster than their lane opponents. Okay, some decent damage, but that's all Sammy Boy needs. You're just not going to shut down this Clinks at all, and I think that is the bigger problem at large.
Yeah, this duo running the IO in that position for a role, we said in the draft, we expect them to sort of maybe play up tempo, try to be aggressive in the lane, try to get some sort of early harass onto that carry, and right now we're just really not seeing that. Sammy is occasionally taking some shots, but it's not really impacting the last hitting for him at all. So he's going to be okay for the time being. Meanwhile, over on the other side of the map, Flea and Husky fighting over the full camp here, and Flea is actually going to prevent Husky from getting it. Now he wants the kill itself. He's going to leap his way forward. One more right click does the trick, and Flea almost kind of a casual arrow out there, just seeing what he can hit. Once he sees it makes contact, though, 2 leap charges gets him in, and that is going to be a nice first blood play. Now you see Flea even denying his own sentry ward here, just so that he can free up this side pull for himself, because things have gotten a little weird. Husky, he just TP'd back in. That arrow doesn't hit. That's a very fortunate series of events, but welcome back to the lane. He just gets smacked in the face, and if that arrow hits, I think Husky dies again. That's a very close call for him.
Yeah, that was a really smart play from Brax there, seeing where Husky was TPing in the tree line and then cutting him off immediately. That could have gotten really bad really quickly for the Disruptor, but that's where Flea unfortunately drops the ball in that small moment. But fortunately, because of that play, they're able to meet the creep waves in a very beneficial way. And when Flea unblocks that camp, it's where you get a little bit more farm. You get a little bit more out of your map whenever you have this Mirana. It's just very, very, very free. You get all of these range creeps, you get all of these large camp creeps, and Flea's got a leap for the arrow, but
a lot of damage Husky's taking already. Starstorm's in, Brax gets the kill with the right click, and well, Flea didn't need the arrow. Brax is a little low on HP here, but Envy, I mean, no offense to Envy, but what the heck is he going to do here? He does not have damage right now as a level 3 Faceless Void, so Brax feels relatively comfortable just sitting back and remaining on this low HP, and I believe, yeah, he's got some tangos coming out to him. He's got the helm as well, so we've got the Dom Helm build coming out. You can see it sort of queued up for him. So after a day in which the heroes we expected to see go for this Helm of the Dominator didn't, now we are getting someone finally sort of not living up to expectations, that's maybe a little bit weird, but going back for that item build.
Yeah, and it's just the numbers getting rescaled. It really didn't change all that much. In addition to that, you still want a large amount of those components. It's never going to feel bad to have 6 armor and 5 HP regen on Tidehunter, and it will just mean that Brax doesn't need to go for nearly as much regen. It is a really efficient item when it comes to the early game. And I think that's the name of TEAMTEAM's game right now. Just do nice, smart plays in the early game, play your game, farm your heroes. All you really need to play around is the relocate and the chrono. Aside from that, you have free reign to really start these team fights whenever you want Brax to get involved.
And you look at the last hits, all 3 of the cores for TEAMTEAM are at the top. So I mean, they're feeling so incredibly good right now. And AT, what do you do if you're 4 Zoomers? No one can rotate. This off-lane duo isn't really doing what you maybe expected from them aggression-wise, and your Disruptor is level 3, so he can't exactly do too much. Maybe he could try to rotate mid, but you'd be rotating onto a level 6 Tiny, so it just feels like they don't have a whole lot of options right now. They may just have to wait it out.
Well, and this is exactly what we already knew. It was going to be a little bit of a farm fest, not a fight fest. We would see maybe some low heroes, but everyone is farming up until there could be power runes spawning if really, let's say, gets a haste, or this Invis rune could actually spark a play. But unfortunately, not for Gunner, because he hasn't gone for those boots just yet. I think he has another null coming up on the Courier. So no play coming in from your Lesh either. Really, the most active lane that could happen is top, and yep, they get Envy again. It's just low levels in the time lock. He's got as many levels in time lock as he can actually have at this stage of the game, but Husky has had to babysit him so much. They're even on levels, and it makes it really hard for you to lane on Void.
Rotate spot, gets off onto Moo, and that is actually a very interesting play, because that was not a direct rotation from Ryoya. He did not go mid to bot. He went mid into the east side jungle. He actually stole this camp over on the side and then sort of made that rotation. So honestly, if he just disappears from mid immediately, maybe 4 Zoomers had a better idea that that was coming. Instead, he sort of stays in the jungle for a little bit. 4 Zoomers kind of assume, okay, he's just going to be taking a camp. Then the rotation comes, and Moo wasn't really ready for it. You saw Z-Freak try to tether over to him, but he connects with the tether, it's just too late to really matter. So Team with 4 kills on the board. So, I mean, we said there wasn't going to be a lot of early fighting, and technically speaking, that is still kind of true, because 4 Zoomers, they're not really in a position to fight back right now. They've just been picked off repeatedly, and on top of that, they're starting to lose some of these last hit battles as well.
Yeah, and oh, mid.
Gunner.
Oh,
Can they get him
close.
away? No, they can't. Flea gets the last bit of damage in, and I mean, Flea. I don't know, man. Just don't let him play Mirana, for God's sake. He's 3-0-1. We saw what he did earlier today. He was 9-0 early on in one of the previous matches. This is what he does. He plays the Mirana to a level of sort of efficiency that very few in the region, or maybe honestly even just in Dota in general, can really match.
Yeah, he's doing so much for his team, and it was even a small misplay from Ryoya there. He didn't have a tree to cleave off of the Lesh, so Flea actually ended up missing his arrow, but it just doesn't matter, because you're a level 5, level 6 Mirana 8 minutes into the game. You are so farmed. It is absolutely
wants
crazy.
it. He's pushing forward. If he can get the toss
back.
back.
Okay.
I think he wanted the just toss in place, maybe to free up for the arrow play, but Flea had creeps in that sort of line, so he would have had to done a little bit of maneuvering to make that happen. Speaking of maneuvering, what is this? Envy? That is an interesting chrono onto Sammy, but this is the problem with the Faceless Void striking at level 6. You don't have much damage, but Moo and Z-Freak are still there, so they do eventually pull through. Sammy gets taken down, but now Moo's got to run. He's TPing himself away just as Ryoya TP's in. And first sort of positive play from 4 Zoomers. It looked a little rough. The Chronosphere at level 6 is not the best, but they're still able to make the kill happen onto a high-value target as well, taking the Clinks out, and everybody clears away before Ryoya can make a move. But you see the Tiny, I mean, he's still maneuvering his way through the woods here. If he can find a target, great. If he doesn't find someone in the next couple of seconds, though, might just want to focus on finishing off that Blink Dagger. He is about 500 gold away, but that's not the best spot to farm it. That is not your side of the map. As 4 Zoomers, they're going to make the jump in. Ryoya dropping low. Ryoya is not dead yet, but Moo is going to finish him off. No, he's not. Z-Freak gets the kill instead. The point remains, Ryoya gets picked, and that felt a little bit greedy. Obviously, he didn't have the vision that we have, so couldn't see those heroes converging on his location, but maybe fall back to your own side if you're looking to sort of farm up that Blink.
Yeah, and that's where they are trying to snowball this Venge as much as possible. They're trying to go for those swap plays, and they're definitely catching their opponents a little bit off guard. I think now Team might retreat to their side of the map, finish off some of those items, and even Flea is under a little bit of stress here, but he was just walking around killing couriers. He's taking so much damage.
Oh, well, my god. Okay, Ravage into Arrow. They were sick of Moo shenanigans. They're able to take him down, and I think, yeah, they just pinged out where the ward is up there, and Flea is going to drop a ward of his own. No sentry to follow it up, though, but while that's happening, Ryoya and Brax, they want damage onto the tier 1 tower, and they do buy some time for the siege creep to go to work, but this isn't really going to be enough to truly threaten it. But the arrow threads the needle, unfortunately. Gunner and Z-Freak will not be hit up by that, and the push will be brought to an end. But honestly, at this point, if you're Team, ET, it still feels like they're getting a lot of what they want at this moment.
Yeah, it does feel that way. I think Ryoya is going to have probably 11.5-minute Blink Dagger. He needs, I think, one more creep wave, and then he's going to be right where he wants to be. And that's where, do they make that push before Brax has Ravage again, or do you play a little bit slower, a little bit more controlled? I think right now they just don't want to throw away what they already have. If they play too heavily into this Faceless Void, I can definitely see Envy spiraling a lot of those kills. Because right now, they just want to farm the jungle with the Clinks while they have everyone else farming up in different areas. And they're trying to make a play on the Brax here, but I think Kobold Creep making him a little swift. They don't got him.
Yeah. Wishful thinking, but it's worth the attempt. Gunner's at least able to clean up a creep wave or two, and now the relocate is pulling them down to the bottom lane to try and go for the tower, but Flea has TP'd in. We do have the Clinks coming over slowly but surely. The tower's already fallen, though, but once Gunner gets pulled away, Envy will be...
They left Gunner.
Oh, okay.
They're looking
Smarter
now.
play. Leave Gunner behind just in case. And Sammy To be incredibly careful. Ryoya, though, there's the blink jumping in. They're going to go for the kill onto Envy. Do they have the damage? They
Arrow.
do with the arrow. Flee. Absolutely. God, it's just, he so rarely misses on those plays. Able to snipe out that kill at the last second. Couple of tips going Envy's way because, well, why not? You're able to get that kill on the very back end of it. And now for Zoomers, I mean, they smoked up. They're looking for revenge, but without that chrono, this is not going to be easy, but you do have Gunner. Lots of magic damage maybe just burst their way through, but no target at the moment. Ryoya is the closest, but yeah, they're just going to reveal themselves here in the middle lane as Moo's pushing it out. So Team with the big kill. They avoid the sort of revenge play on the smoke, and now if you're 4Zoomers, what do? You smoked, you've got 4 heroes hanging out in the middle lane. This is not very efficient for them, and if you push all the way in to try and get this tower, yeah, Ryoya was just waiting. So they at least scout him out, but there's still a lot of guys not doing a whole lot in that middle lane right now. Gunner says, yeah, enough of this. He'll push off, just start farming up in the jungle.
Yeah, the big problem right now is this is time where Brax isn't the one defending mid. They're just not strong enough on 4Zoomers to get their last track actually onto the opposing high ground. And
Ryoya jumped to Moo, not able to get the kill initially, but here comes Flea. Arrow flies, not going to connect, but the Starstorm will be there. And
oh no, Static Storm.
He tried to make that. Oh no. Gunner can't get off the stun. Now Ryoya wants back in. He's going to get the avalanche into the toss back into the Fiend's Grip. And Gunner, oh boy, that's... How can that play go so poorly that quickly? It's absolutely horrible. They lose two cores, in fact, as both Moo and Gunner get picked off, and now that tier 1 tower is almost certainly going to die here.
Oh, and look at this stack they just stumbled upon.
This is starting to get a little bit brutal for 4Zoomers. They need to try and do something. Group up, get the chrono play, I don't know, because we're 15 minutes in, 14 minutes in, and Team sitting on a 4K lead, and as you said, they just steal this Ancient stack. So that would have been your best immediate sort of response to get one of your cores back up into it. Instead, this is looking a little dangerous as Moo. Arrow does not hit, but it gets the vision. Ryoya jumps in. There's the toss back into the avalanche. Moo's dead. Ravage deployed. Didn't hit Z-Freak, as he was hit up by the Nightmare instead, but they got what they wanted. I'm not entirely sure that was necessary from Brax, but better safe than sorry. It's a long cooldown, but you secure that kill, and now without Moo, there's no positioning for 4Zoomers. Gunner can't just walk in if they want another fight.
Yeah, but look at how reactive 4Zoomers have to play right now. Envy is just one creep camp away. He has to sit behind his Leshrac right now, who has had to play tandem versus a lot of those team heroes that have unfortunately been able to kill him in that one kill mid with Husky, almost baiting him to get closer. It just feels really sad for him. And now you're going to see the creep shenanigans. The helm of the Overlord is going to be completed in just another 1,000 gold here from Brax, and then you're going to see those ancient creeps starting to walk around, get aggressive, and if they get Envy top, that would be big. They're going to break their smoke here.
Mike doesn't have the Fiend's Grip for a few seconds, but Ryoya blinks in. There's going to be the
Arrow.
Wow, Avatos into Arrow, Gush from Brax for good measure. And, well, that's about as clean as it gets. Nice 4-man rotation in onto the Faceless Void, and Envy, this is not fun anymore for him, really. He's still trying for that Maelstrom, but progress is heavily impeded by being dead. That makes a lot of things in life more difficult, but he's got to just keep on building towards it. He doesn't have too many alternatives. If he goes for the Chronosphere without basically the whole team behind him, you don't have the damage to find the kills to follow it up. So it's either sit back and continue farming, or group up with basically everything you have and look for a fight. Right now, it's looking like the latter as they're pushing their way towards the Roche pit. No one from Team is actually scouting this right now.
Moo.
They got all the way to the pit. Moo is going to get the swap down. Sammy's been caught, stunned up, Static Storm thrown down, Chronosphere deployed as well. Where's that follow-up damage? Gunner is in. Sammy's going to get taken down. Stun comes out from Gunner as well, connecting on both Brax and Flea. And Team, they have to fall back. They are going to be able to get most of the lineup away, but I mean, I always try to avoid being too harsh, but ET, that's unacceptable. They allowed their opponents to walk directly up to the pit, and now Ryoya may get caught out as well. Can they finish him off, though? There's going to be the dilation in for the slow. That's going to be the glimpse pulling him back in. Gunner does fall, but if they can get Ryoya, they're going to be okay with the trade. Now, Mike, well, admire the ambition, but he will be taken down, and I, I don't understand how there wasn't someone basically acting
And
as the
please
lookout.
save it. Oh, Moo.
He's got the leap. Oh, well, that's a problem. Moo stuns him up. There's the bashes out from Envy. Moo will fall, but Mike, okay, in for the kill with the brain sap, but they've still lost control of the pit right now unless they just rush everyone over, and that's actually exactly what they're doing. Sammy's back in. Brax is coming over as well. The Ravage is at the ready. And this may all end up working out for them. Well, they'll get Roshan. I'm not sure working out for them is the proper phrase, considering they lose about 3 or 4 heroes, but they got what they came for.
Yep, they continue to force the issue. I think it's a really good response from Team saying that, okay, we gotta stop panicking right now. Mike, buy back. We're gonna go in. It's okay. We have Ravage. They can't contest this anymore. But it's still crazy stuff for them to go in without Ravage, getting completely scouted there. And that's a really good smoke from 4Zoomers to get them back in the game a little bit. And a lot of small items just got finished up by everyone after that fight. You have Eternal Shroud now on the Leshrac. You've got your Mask of Madness Maelstrom finished up on Eternal Envy. The biggest problem is still you have an Aegis now over on Sammy Boy. I think you got a lot of gold, you got a lot of XP, you saved a lot of your players' games in that fight, but you still have to play this one out, and playing into Ravage is still something that 4Zoomers cannot do until they have at least a BKB on Envy. It's where you're really going to see him be scared to find those engagements still.
Yeah, and Envy is starting up the progress on farming towards that BKB, but just started it, really. So it's not going to be grabbing that anytime soon. In the meantime, looking like a potential trade-up of the towers. 4Zoomers looking for the tower down bot, but their tier 2 up top had already been taken. Question at this point, if you're Team, do you start TPing down, or do they try to force movement by pushing the high ground? And it looks like it will be option number 2 for them. Tier 3 tower starting to get hit up, and now we see those rotations. Husky's coming back in. They bring Moo over as well, but the heavy hitters are still not here. Moo does go for the swap, though. The relocate's coming in, but they need the static. There it is. Okay, they're on to Sammy, but that's the man with the Aegis, and Brax gonna push everybody back with the Ravage into that Fiend's Grip. Envy goes down. Gunner is gonna do his best. He does get through the Aegis. He'll take down Mike here as well, but he is stuck in the middle, and what happened? Z-Freak didn't pull him back.
No, and that's DD Rune on Rioya, so you're doing so much damage, and this actually might just be Rax. I don't think they can actually do anything here. Yeah, this is a free Rax 19 minutes into the game.
Not entirely sure. I think Z-Freak, maybe he was just too far away. The tether didn't come out in time or couldn't connect, but that is really just backbreaking. Team, as you said, they got a Rax pre-20 minutes off the back of that. So this is as strong a position as really you could realistically have hoped for with this lineup. And 4Zoomers gotta try to get it together here. But again, what do? If you go for the chrono, you need the whole lineup behind you for Envy. We did see that initially in that fight in the river. Obviously, things kind of fall apart after the sort of buybacks and respawns, but that's what they need. They need the chrono down. They need the static storm in position. They need that Leshrac to be going absolutely ham with the damage. And in that instance, no one got the opportunity to do really any step of the plan.
Yeah, and that's where the big item for Sammy Boy is queued up. He's even stealing the tome from his supports because he knows that if he can get this Scotty, if he can get level 18, he is unkillable. And oh, Envy blinked into it.
Chrono comes out, though. He's going to try to just get away. And he will be able to do so, but it's going to come at a cost. Husky should be dying here to cover his teammate's escape, but...
Defensive Chrono when you don't have Glyph, though?
It is rough for Envy. So, yeah, no Chrono, no Glyph. High ground very much exposed now, and I don't know. The silver lining is that Envy does live. Always have to take that into account, but quality of life, right? He lives, but what can he do now with the Chrono down and the Glyph unavailable? They can't defend this tier 2, and to a certain extent, I'm not sure they could even defend the tier 3. Gunner is not here. There we go. He's TPing in now. Okay. But at this point, that tier 3 is going to take a lot of damage before they're really in position to defend the tower. So, Team, they get in, they get some chip damage, about 800 dealt, and then they back off with no casualties at all.
Yeah, that's where Mu, with the freshly completed Aghanim Scepter, they are being very cautious not to throw this time. It's really smart from Team. They know the only way they die is if they get swapped underneath Tier 4 towers, and that's the only thing Mu can look for in this situation. The problem is that it's so obvious from four Zoomers that they're standing on their high ground. They have to smoke to get out onto the map. And if Team take this smoke at all, it feels like the mid tier 3 tower is going to be forfeit at the very least. And that's where Brax is just looking to break. He has a blink dagger as well. I don't even know if you kill him if you do bring him back. Flea would be a target, but
Okay, they get the swap, but there's the leap, getting him away. And Brax
well,
blinking in, Ravage down, Sammy throwing out that barrage. Gunner already dead, and at this point, Envy still has no chrono, so there's nothing really they can do here. Mu gets picked off. He is going to try and fight his way out with the illusion, but the Fiend's... Okay, the Fiend's grip wasn't going to actually be able to lock it down. That's a good relocate to get Z-Freak away. But Envy's still stuck in this, or maybe not. He's got the time walk, so he's going to be all right. But Brax blinks into the base. He doesn't care. He's so tanky on this Tide. He knows they don't really have the damage right now to get through him, so he's just going to sit there while Z-Freak, unfortunately, with the relocate out, then has to come back in, and they're set up onto him for the kill.
Yeah, and they still need to be careful of the swamp, and they have it again in 10 seconds, as well as you're doing a lot of damage from this Venge still. Venge Ags is more or less the same, you're just slightly slower, and Envy with the Chrono.
They're looking to hit up Brax. Nightmare from IX Mike, though, breaks it up, and the Static Storm is still in there, so Brax dropping low. They're able to finish him off. They want the Clinks now as well. Sammy, though, not dead yet. They're trying to chunk him down as Gunner charges forward. They will get that. Now they're on to Mike. They glimpse him back in. Envy gets 2, Gunner gets 2, and the high ground will be held. Tier 3 still standing. Maybe someone has to come back to deal with this creep wave, but for now, 4 Zoomers get what they needed with that high ground defense.
Yeah, Envy had a perfect chrono there. Not only that, but all of those kills happen after Mu actually respawns, so he gets so many levels from everything that went their way. I'm really surprised that Sammy Boy walked so far forward there. He really didn't need to be caught on the high ground the way that he was. I think he was trying to dodge out the Chronosphere, and I don't think he ended up in it, but very simply, Gunner stuns the ground, and he's too tanky for you to kill in just an Avatos combo. You needed some more spells, possibly from the Mirana, but everything was spent trying to get that Void off of the Tidehunter in that fight, and they push high ground without Ravage. They throw a little bit more into the 4 Zoomers camp, and you even see Gunner being the massive winner of that fight after killing both those cores is now top the net worth. That could have been the throw. If there was any throw in this game, that might have been it. It's still a long road, but it's definitely something that Team need to be way more careful about going high ground again.
Step in the right direction for 4 Zoomers, and a mistake for Team that maybe they avoid in the future. But still up by 8k. They're not really losing control immediately. They're not in imminent danger, but 4 Zoomers have a little bit more room to breathe. We see the BKB finished off for the Faceless Void, and as you mentioned, that Leshrac, a massive step forward. Has the plate mail up now, so... well, they're going to keep on building. That's really the only thing they can do right now. Hold your high ground. See if your opponents make a mistake. Maybe we'll see another sort of smoke up play for them in case Team are maybe a little bit too spread out. But they're going to try and take it slow and steady right now. Not looking to rush anything that could really just kind of slam the door in their faces. Because if they push out, if they take a big fight and they just get wiped, then you are at least a second lane of racks down, potentially even more. So they've got to pick and choose their battles here, and if you're Team, you know that. They're just going to sort of attack around the edges. You see the tier 1 being taken down in the bottom lane, so they're going to be pushing in from all directions. They've got that Ancient Creep to help out with the Helm of the Overlord, so not a lot 4 Zoomers can do to stop this.
Yeah, and it's an objective that I think they could have taken for free instead of going for that mid tower, but that's where this 11k lead could have been a 14k lead, and the past is the past. If they really wanted to be cautious, they could look instead towards possibly that Roche pit. Roche will be responding in a minute here, and it's a fight that I definitely think that 4 Zoomers can take. But the biggest question on my mind is, will Mu be able to find those swaps? Will he be able to tank this fight as long as possible? And it's a good smoke up. If they find Envy, that would be big, but he's got a BKB. He can actually turn pretty hard here.
Yeah, they want to find the target, but they need to be careful on the initiation. Sammy is sort of wrapping around. Yeah, that's a lot. That's a lot of TPs out of there, but probably for the best. Sammy was sort of leaving his finger on the trigger there, so you're going to avoid the fight. And honestly, if you're four Zoomers, I mean, you're buying time for yourself. The Lotus Orb was finished off by Gunnar a little while back, so his defensive capabilities take a step forward, but they need more. And uh-oh, they're in onto Brax. That's a nice stun into the Static Storm. They actually dust him up as well, but Mike is able to hit him with the Defensive Nightmare. I don't know if that's going to be enough. Brax is still dropping. Gunnar needs to get the last bit of damage onto him, and they will be able to do just that thanks to the glimpse from Husky. And well, that's one of the harder kills on the map for them to get, but they do manage to put it together, and just in time as well. Roshan has respawned, and without your Tide, I don't know how confidently you approach that pit. He does have a buyback, but they would rather not use it right now. So we'll see. Can they wait it out, or will four Zoomers force the issue? They're starting to push into the river.
Yeah, this is a scary position, and I don't even think that they're fast enough with their decision making right now. You're not even going to force Brax into a position where he might want to get that buyback going, and Ruoya is also able to blank out. It's a very scary position to be in, but again, it feels obvious from four Zoomers. When you see these creeps already in the base hitting, you know that they're trying to look for a pick, especially while we can't get entirely set up on the team side without that Tide Hunter. And Mike, he's got another smoke. After this wave, they're going to look to get their re-engagement on that pit. It's a little bit strange because Sammy Boy is very far away finishing up his BKB, but he's bought out for the BKB too. So they are looking for this fight, and they are looking to win it, and probably the game here.
So he's within striking distance to help his teammates out if they do get the fight. BKB delivered. And yeah, they want it. They want that fight. He's got the Death Pact going. He's got the BKB at the ready. They just need the jump in. Who can they find? Gunnar is hanging out mid. The arrow. Oh, if that hits, that might just be their route in, but not going to be able to make the connection. Four Zoomers will fall back, and now both sides. Sort of content with the stalemate for now. Nobody wants to just really rush in head first, so they're going to scout it out a bit. Ryoyo will see that Roche has respawned. They probably could have guessed that already, but they will have the confirmation. But there's not a whole lot for the Tiny to do there. He can't exactly start Roshan himself, as you just saw. Mu is going to pretty frequently check in with that wave of terror play. Would like to see somebody get some vision up on this high ground, though. Four Zoomers control it at the moment, but if they could get the ward down, they could spot out some movement. But right now, TEAMTEAM are looking for the longer wraparound. You see the smoke coming out from them onto all five. But where do they get the wraparound? Gunnar. He's a little far from Z-Freak, and there's going to be the jump. Brax goes in. Ravage connecting. Avatos is there, and Gunnar is dead. No buyback available. The relocate immediately deployed to make sure Envy is not in the line of fire. So they pull him back, but now somebody has to be in position so that Z-Freak can get himself away. But there's going to be the Chrono, actually. They're going to try and take the fight, but Mu, he is dropping low inside of that friendly Chrono, and the Fiend's Grip actually locked down the Faceless Void. Envy, he's going to be able to time walk it away, but he's not doing the damage that they need. Sammy's just going to wipe him out, and this is absolutely horrible for Zoomers. They've lost 4, and it's gonna be 5. Husky has no way out of this one as the Avalanche comes through. The toss follows it up. And that is the full 5-man. Yeah, they don't need it, really. They can just go. They sense their opportunity, and we said if they can win the next fight, they could maybe just win the game.
Oh, boy.
They want the tier 4s. Buyback's pretty much non-existent. Z-Freak's the only one who has one. And
this is a quiet GG.
Wow, yeah.
Oh, no.
Like, nothing is happening here. There's just no response from 4 Zoomers. Obviously, none of their heroes are alive, but even once they come back up, it's just... it feels like it's going to be too late. There's no Chrono. Gunnar has to just try and charge in right now. They don't have a Glyph either, so that's it. Well, okay, fakes out the TP, but I don't know if this is going to matter. Ryoya comes in. There's going to be the toss. They're getting in onto Gunnar. No, they're not. They're just going for the Ancient, because why the hell not? No response from 4 Zoomers coming out in time, and an exciting game, but a very quiet end, as you said, ET. Just team walk in, and they very casually and very politely destroy your Ancient and kill you.
The Envy collapse. Doesn't even put the G's in chat. It's an unfortunate circumstance, but I had a lot of questions coming out of that draft. I don't think a lot of those were answered. I think if they wanted to play that same playstyle, because if you look at it, right, for Zoomers, they've taken the Leshrac, they've taken the Faceless Void, they've ruined it in that sense where they've taken it out of TEAMTEAM's hands. but they don't play that same dodgy style. They play this style where they are trying to come out ahead in their lanes. They try to be a little bit more aggressive when it comes to their items, and Team catch them every single time. Something that D2 Hustlers were unable to do in both of their series versus Team, where the exact same strategy happens. And you go for this Venge pick, and it goes all the way back to it for me. Venge IO isn't really a combo. It's not something that's going to be able to beat Bane Clanks. Maybe if it was Bane and some other hero, I could see it, but you end up sticking this really weak lane versus a hero that is going to run to the jungle no matter how many heroes you bring to its lane to try and ruin it. You're playing Leshrac when you can't make any plays on the mid tower because you're terrified of not only the Tiny, but also the Tidehunter. It just feels like there was no cohesion from the four Zoomers lineup. Not even talking about the fact that they have a 4 IO with a Faceless Void. There is no damage coming in that Chrono. You can barely tether a Faceless Void inside of Chrono half the time. So all of this damage is coming from your Venge pretty much, because although Leshrac is a fantastic hero, not every single Leshrac spell can hit inside that Chrono unless you really get him on the edge. And for a lot of those fights, I just feel like four Zoomers weren't able to play to that very specific style of execution where Team, they blink Ravage, they blink Avatos, they grip a hero. It's so crazy, stupid, simple. It just worked over and over and over again. I think the number was 19-minute racks top and an 11K gold lead at that point. I just feel like four Zoomers, for the caliber of players that they have, were not playing good Dota at all.
Just felt like their draft was going in three different directions, I think, right? You've got the IO in a position 4 role, but then you take the Vengeful Spirit. We mentioned in the draft we were looking for that Undying or that Tusk play that we had seen from them before. So you take the IO in a position 4 role, you don't get a great lane partner for it. You get the Faceless Void with the Chrono, but you don't get great damage to follow it up. You put Gunner on the Leshrac, but you have no one else to then make initiating plays, and you have Husky on the Disruptor, but there's no one to protect him. So I don't know. Like you said, ET, just feels like for what we've seen from Four Zoomers before, this one felt a little bit off. But to a certain extent, the draft is a little bit weird. The execution then sort of suffered a bit, but Team, they stick to their guns. They stick to the game plan, regardless of whether Four Zoomers were having success or not. In this instance, it was obviously not, but when you factor that in with the fact that Team's lineup was so much more consistent and much easier to execute, they just really took over. And I don't know, Four Zoomers kind of dug their own grave a little bit, but it was just weird.
Yeah, and you know what the kicker is? I went back to go check because I was like, swear that they picked this Io Tusk hero combination into Bane Clinks. And guess what? They picked Io Tusk into Bane Cling. So it clearly wasn't the lane. It was just some amalgamation of ideas that ended up clashing and colliding that just made it not work. So clearly they were comfortable with it before. Tusk didn't get changed in 730C. There was some internal issue here in this game. That's the only thing that I can imagine. Usually Dota games that end around the 30-minute mark have had some internal problem with them, but it's a bizarre one. It's really hard to call, man. It's not gonna feel good for four Zoomers, and that is a decisive 2-0, which should be your regional rival here. So I can't imagine they're very happy with their performance.
Yeah, and if this were game one, there'd be a little bit more leniency. Oh, it's game one. They threw something out. They tried something with that Venge IO. But this was game two when you were already down a match. So I don't know. At this point, harping on it any longer is probably not good for our sanity. So I guess we'll let it go. But Team, they came to play today. That is 4 straight victories for them. They clean sweep their 2 series, and they are now in sole possession of that first place spot. So congratulations to them. They showed out today. It was very impressive against, as you mentioned, some of what we assume to be their biggest regional rivals in this field. So they got it done. They're now the squad sort of in that more favorable position moving forward.
Yeah, and now I'm just really interested to see. Of course, we talk about NA teams. Of course, I talk about it a lot. They continue to improve as a lot of these tournaments go on. And I think Team Team and for Zoomers, they were both the squads in the previous BTS Pro Series that went out with a little bit of a weak cry compared to, of course, Undying, who went on to win it all. But Team Team is definitely showing that they have some very strong NA players and they're finally getting a lot of those ideas cemented because this is previous patch stuff. They tried to mess around maybe a little bit with some of the new things, but really, I think if they can keep this solid lineup and this solid strategy going for them, could definitely see them ending up at the top of the group stage in a few days' time.
Yeah, so we'll see if that momentum can carry on for them. It will not be carrying into tomorrow, however, I can guarantee you that. And the reason why is because there are no games tomorrow. Tomorrow is an off day for BTS Pro Series 8. So there will not be any matches. We'll be back here on Tuesday. Wow, forgot what day it was. Jesus. Tuesday will be when we kick it back off. ET and I will be here starting at 1 p.m. Pacific time. So a bit of an off day in the schedule. We will see you again Tuesday, though, for some more group stage action. Until then, gonna be hopping off here, shutting things down. ET, any closing thoughts here before we shut it down?
Very simply, have a good night and see you guys Tuesday.
All right. Thank you very much, everybody. And again, yeah, see you Tuesday. Hope you join us for some more BTS Pro Series 8 action. So thank you all very much. Good night.